Welcome, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. Welcome to the GG APAC Education Technology Connect program, which is Staying Connected 6.0. Yes, Staying Connected 6.0. This is the sixth time this kind of an event is being held. And this is an event which Google Educator groups of Asia Pacific put together in their regional languages. And this event is being held across many DGs. So you might find some happening in Japan or some happening in India. And I'm here to represent GG Delhi NCR in the sessions hosted by GG Nagoya, Japan, and GG Calcutta, India. They are the leaders, that is, the Nate and Sudipta, are curating these sessions in English. But later in the day, you will also be able to see me and hear me on GG Delhi NCR presenting sessions in Hindi. So today is definitely a busy day for GEGs. And this particular session is the first one in the English sessions of the day, and they had sessions yesterday, today, and tomorrow. So look out for the link of the GEG Asia Connect website, which will give you all the information, and you can check out all these sessions later in the recordings that would be available on the YouTube channels as well. So let's get started with today's session. But a big shout out to both Nate and Sudipta for putting together and giving me this opportunity to share my understanding of how I can make an engaging classroom using Desmos. So let me start with my introduction. I'm Sangeeta Gulati. I'm, of course, leader of GG Delhi NCR, but I am a maths teacher, been teaching maths for a very long time, 30 plus years. And I love using educational technology in the ways that it makes the classroom engaging. It gives students a chance to learn and enjoy maths in whichever way I can possibly bring that change. And yes, please let us know in the chat where you are joining from, what are your interests, and thank you for joining. Please stay tuned in because this session, although it looks and sounds like for maths, but it is not exclusively for maths teachers, because Desmos is something which can be used by all subjects. So let me give you an opportunity to experience Desmos, and therefore it might be just helpful if you can sign in on a bigger device, because part of my session would be a little bit hands-on, and it would be really interesting if you can be the live participants of today's show. So go ahead, stay tuned, of course, on your phones if you are listening to me, but you can also open another window or another device and get ready to join me in the second part of today's session. So without any further delay, let's get started. I'm going to put up my screen so that we can start sharing some little bit of presentation before we get started. So yes, do you Desmos? That's the question. And if not, I hope after this session, you will feel encouraged to go ahead and do that. So Desmos is definitely something which helps you create these engaging moments, those aha moments as well in the classroom. And it would be fantastic if some of you can share in the chat if you are already using Desmos and what your experience has been with the Desmos. Along with me today, I have my friend Vibha, who is also captain of GG Delhi NCR, supporting me in the back end. So she is going to make sure that you are, there in the chat, and she will interact with you. And in case you have a question, feel free to throw in, and Vibha will definitely answer them for you, or I will get back to those questions once I get back to seeing the chat. Right now, I can't see the chat, so let me just go ahead and share with you what we are going to talk about. So, what's Desmos? Definitely a software which has changed the way that I teach, and many educators all across the world teach maths. It's definitely, it sounds, and it started as a graphing calculator. So one mostly relates Desmos to in general, I'm saying to a graph situation where I need to graph. And yes, graphing calculator is the most powerful feature of among the various calculators that Desmos has, that I find very useful in my classroom. So yes, it is also has many other features, and we are going to be talking about two of them, that is the graphing calculator and the Desmos classroom activities. But if you go to the Desmos website, that is desmos.com, simply that, you will find a page like this, and in the right on the top, the tab will show you various options. And what I really love about Desmos is their mission statement. So they have put it out very loud and clear that they are here to help every student learn math, and not only learn math, love learning math. And that's exactly the pleasure I find in sharing this with my student as well as with my co-teachers. So when you click on the math tools, you will find that there are various options. You will find a lot of calculators coming up there, where you're looking at graphing calculator, scientific calculator, four function calculators. It also works in a test mode. Of course, in India, that's not common, that's not known. But in United States, there are states which have allowed this to be used in the test exams state and exam mode. And of course, matrix calculator also, it has geometry tools. So there is so much to explore in Desmos. Our focus for this session, which is going to be an around hour long, so can't bring you everything, but we are going to be talking about how graphing calculator has helped me in giving voice, in giving an opportunity for student to be the creator in my class. And then, of course, the second thing, that is how as a teacher I'm able to create or use activities which are already there and bring the learning or give the onus to the students to learn on their own. At the same time, I as a facilitator am there with the students. So let's get started with the graphing calculator. So graphing calculator is really something which makes plotting of any kind of a function super easy. It's so intuitive. You just have to type in the sidebar the function that you are looking for, and immediately you would get the graph coming up. This is something which is so intuitive that if you want to type in x squared, you can actually type xx twice. Of course, maths teachers would never agree on seeing something like that, but you would get a graph from there. So that is the ease that this function, this graph calculator allows. You can also have implicit functions. So if you would want to see the graph of x square upon a square plus y square upon b square is equal to 1 kind, that's the conics. Then also the graphing calculator of Desmos supports you. At the same time, we are always interested in making you bringing in more and more explorations. What if this happens? What will change in the graph? And of course, the trigonometric functions. So if you want to not only talk about just a sine x, but you want to talk about sine of a times x, what's the change happening? Just adding an a as a maybe a prefix or kind of a multiple there in the function, it just brings in a possibility of a slider, which as it changes the value gives you the various transformations that the function would follow. Try it out, and I'm going to give you a live demo as well. I'm not going to go only with the screenshots or these gifs, which are super easy to demonstrate everything that I want in a very short time. But another feature which really has attracted me and has made a difference in our classroom is when you are talking about exploring these graphs, you can, of course, do them with various other softwares. But if I am looking at how student explores them, if I want to give them a little more convenient way of exploring, I can use this not only by looking at the whole function, but also see what effect it will have if I restrict the domain and range of a function. So for me as a grade 11 and 12 maths teachers, functions is important, and much more to that is domain and range of the functions, which children often get very nervous and confused with. But if we give them an opportunity to just play, not worry about whether it is working or not working, it does help them to embrace this concept. Not only that, what you're seeing right now is my very immature attempt of creating some artwork. Don't let that fool you. This is only what a teacher can do. But given a chance to the students, these and many more are the possible creations that they can and they will bring to you without fail. So you're looking at beautiful artwork here, which students of my classes have created over the years. And I'm, of course, not going to miss an opportunity to say, since I'm a teacher and I teach at Sanskriti School, New Delhi, this is the school logo that a student of mine several years back had created. And this is something, a piece which I'm very, very proud of. So this is a very intricate, but there are many other graphs that have come up. But this was close to my heart because this means that the student has thought very, very originally, has come up with every piece thinking about the actual shape that the logo takes. And now, if you take a look at this left bar that is there, there are so many functions. Even the functions which were not taught at that moment are being explored. So you have, of course, linear functions, you have also conics, and then there is a restriction of the domain which has made each of these parts. And of course, the colored region means child has explored inequalities as well. Creating something like that is not always easy, but students will surprise you and will bring wonders to you as we go along. Let me try and show you some more example of it. Again, I failed to open up the side that I wanted to, but never mind. We are live and we are going to go along with that. So I have tried to curate some of these art pieces for my reference, and of course, as a matter of pride of the students' work. And you can see how beautifully they have worked on their understanding of what they want to put as the picture. So if you want to look at, maybe there is a teddy bear here, let's bring it back home, and you can see each piece of this. If you're looking closely at the eye of this, you are able to see the possibility of how many curves would be involved. Now, what does that do as far as the student's understanding of maths goes? Child is exploring, it's not just guessing. Child is exploring, thinking about what kind of a function, and then what should be the restrictions on x and y. Lot of analytical decision is being made to decide what kind of a curve is to be considered. And then, because there is a symmetry in a face like this, what kind of a change would one do to get the other side of it? So those kind of decisions are really sharpening the skills of the students. And of course, once they come up, are ready with their work, they come to the class and they present their curves, talking about what made them decide, how did they go about. And some of them even bring their rough sketches which they draw on a regular graph paper, and from there they try to transform it into such artwork. So I hope you're getting excited to think about the possibilities that Desmos opens for you and for your students. At the same time, how does one start? If I want to think about where do I go to start Desmos, so let's start with putting that website address, desmos.com. And very, very important, please create an account for yourself so that your work gets saved. So if you have created an account, your all the work that you're going to do will get saved there. You can open it at any time. So this is the web page of desmos.com, and you will find math tools classroom. We are going to come to that. And of course, the resources. This is where you go to learn. And this is the big button of graphing calculator. So if I click on the graphing calculator, it opens with a blank graph. And here on the left hand side is the panel which you can start using as your input tools add or input bar, call what you may, and you can start typing in. So there I go. So I have a y is equal to x. If I want it to be y is equal to 3x plus 5, I have the corresponding graph coming in. Let's try something a little more elaborate. Suppose I want a function f of x equal to square root. So again, math typing is always a problem. Everyone struggles with how do I type that? Why do I have to go to such lengths? Well, Desmos makes that easy. All you have to do is just type in SQ RT and you get your symbol of square root. So you can now type in whichever you want. You want to take in maybe you maybe trying to get some kind of a conics. So you can have maybe 16 minus x squared, and I am ready to do. So for x squared, what did I do? I use the shift and the number 6 key to take the cursor up in the exponents of x and type in the the exponent that you are interested in. So that's how super easy it is. And again, when you are doing this as an exploration with the students, you can always bring in and say, okay, suppose this is my semicircle. But if I want to also get the lower half of the semicircle, what should I change in this function? So hopefully your students are going to respond and will say, well, that's your positive square root. Now let me add a negative. All I have to do is add a negative there and I get the lower semicircle. If your graph is getting too clustered, you can always hide parts of the functions. So if I've right now hidden that function, it hasn't gone away. Just clicking on that little button there, if I click it back, it comes back. I can change the color of it. So I can make it green. If I want its thickness to be changed, I can change the thickness. I can also change the display of it, depending on the need that you have of how you are using it. Of course, there are so many options of Desmos that you might, really find interesting, because you're also looking at, let me hide these away for a minute. You can, if you click on that plus sign, hopefully you will be able to see. Let me bring that a little zoomed out. You will be able to see that you can have fx as an expression. You can put a note here, which means just simply text. You can add a table. So if I add a table here, what's going to happen? If I put a value of x as 2 and correspondingly I put a 4, I hope you can see immediately a point has popped up on the screen. And then if you maybe want them to figure out a linear pattern, you can start taking some numbers here and say, okay, I'm looking at a 3 and this is going to become maybe 6. And so are we observing any pattern? Look out for that, children. And hopefully you are looking at a possibility of some kind of a pattern coming in. Of course, it's kind of zoomed out so you couldn't see that, but you're looking at these patterns coming in. If the students are able to figure out what the pattern is and you want to identify, you may want to put in that y is always going to be same as 2 times of x, and there you have your line going through it. A quick another demo that I would like to show is of sliders, because that is where a whole lot of explorations happen. So let's get rid of this table as well. And at the same time, I want to talk about trigonometric functions. So if I'm talking about trigonometric functions, maybe you definitely would be interested in getting the label on the x-axis in the language of radians. So what does one do for that? Go back to this little graph settings here, and you can change the uh, way that scale is decided. So I can choose to get multiples of pi in the on the x-axis. Again, Greek letters. How do we type those Greek letters? Again, a pain when we are thinking about even typing a paper for our exams or assignments. In the graph, all you have to do here is type in pi, and it converts into pi. I want to maybe take the scale to be negative 2 pi to 2 pi, and I want to give it some steps of 2 pi, and I wanted to have the steps of pi by 4. So you can see how easily it has now changed the x-axis to be in multiples of pi by 4. Now, maybe we can do some explorations in trigonometric functions. So suppose I type in g of x. Remember, I did take f of x earlier, so I'm not taking g of x. So I can take g of x to be sine x. So you're looking at a possibility of that graph coming in because I've taken pi by 4 as a scale. So it's kind of looking a little stretched. At the same time, the y-axis scale I did not change. So it is up to you if you could go back and then you can change the scale on the y-axis as well. So let's change that so that it looks a little more proper. As far as we want to start with maybe minus, so let's call it -3. I don't need so much in the y-axis negative area, and then I have 3, and you can even take the steps to be 1. So let's see if that has made it look different. It has. So you're looking at the graph coming in. You can always zoom in and out with these plus minus, and if you go here, you would be able to even do a reverse contrast, just in case you have students who have a problem reading the graphs on the white background. You can do that so that you are able to look at the graph clearly. You can also make it bigger, especially when you're projecting in the class. You can make it a little more easy to project and make it more visible. Let's see if I can change this to a times sine x. So the moment I typed in a, it says add slider. Let's add a slider. And what does this slider do? As I change that slider value, I can see the various transformations that the function is taking and how easy it is. Now you can think about asking questions to the students. What will happen if it was if when a is maybe less than 1? What happens when a is more than 1? What will happen if I bring a b in there? Or let's take it another step forward. If I bring in a bx plus c, then are we able to see the various possibilities? So again, you're looking at a possibility of changing the slider manually and asking students to explore. Give them a set of questions and let them open up the Desmos and explore and figure it out on their own as to what they are doing. Coming to the next part, that is where I was talking about the drawing the shape or drawing an artwork. Just to give you a glimpse, it's nothing that can match the expertise of what my students do. This is something which I was just trying and it came up, it turned into a slightly cartoon kind of a look with a long face. Call it whatever you want. And now I want to get a mouth as well constructed here. So we are going to try and get a shape which suits best. Maybe a conic might help. So in this case, suppose I start with putting y is equal to, I want to get a kind of a semicircle, but let's see what happens. So suppose I take square root of, uh, because I have been playing with it, so I know that this would be something close, maybe 4 minus 7x square. So, well, that's it. But that doesn't look like actually a nice shape. Maybe I want it to be flipped down. I want it to be a parabola opening upwards, or a rather semicircle in this case. And so all you have to do is maybe bring a negative. If you want it to be filled up, to be a region, what can one do? Change this equal to sign to what? Any guesses if you have in the chat? Inequalities will bring a region. So it could be less than, but it's gone out. Equal to, it is still out, and that does not work. So I'm looking at shading inside, so it has to be greater than equal to. Now this is where the students, when they create this artwork, start taking a decision. I don't want this region to go extending. Where am I going to cut it out? So that's the region that, or a decision that we have to make, and that is what it means by restricting the domains and the range. So are we going to restrict the values of x or restrict the value of y? This is the decision that the students are now taking to decide where or what the y should be. So this is something which is a challenge for you. Think about what should I do to make sure that only this part, that is a mouth, gets filled up and not the rest of it. If you are going to be putting those conditions, they have to be put in curly braces here. And maybe you want this y to be, let's say it has to be restricted between some numbers. So going back again, I want it to be restricted between this, which is -2 to 0. So I'm going to put -2 less than equal to y and less than equal to 0. That's it. And you get, well, not a really pretty face, but that's the kind of an idea that hopefully you have getting as to, and appreciate how much effort students and how much thinking students are putting in to create such beautiful artwork. So hats off to those children who've been working with me and giving me such beautiful work that I can showcase in an event like this. Moving back to where we were, I said at the beginning that we are going to talk about two things: graphing and then the Desmos activities. So we are looking at the classroom is a new feature that has been added in terms of the terminology, but you have everything covered under what is called as the teachers component. So there is a students component and a teachers, and under the teachers component you can browse through the activities that are already there, and student will use it, the second option. We'll try to get you to join as a student in a while. So let's talk about these activities which are called as the Desmos Activity Builders, classroom activity builders. So when you go to this browse activity part, you will see whole lot of these activities which are ready to use. Of course, you can customize them as well. You can create your own right from the scratch. But the Desmos community, the Desmos developers, they have their own activities, and the ones that educators create and are approved by Desmos are also shared here. But in addition to all of these are there are thousands of activities which you can google for and find. And not only for maths, you can find those activities for concepts in science, social science. You can also find it in languages. So there is a huge community of educators who are working in Desmos, whether they are English teachers or they are French or Spanish teachers. So do not let that be just a math tool. And if you are not a math teacher, go and tell your math teachers that this is a tool that they must explore. So let's try to understand what these Desmos activities are. I heard or read somewhere a statement, and that has stuck with me, that Desmos activities are nothing but interactive slides on steroids. So they're that interactive. So let's see what exactly is happening in these activities. There are a whole lot of components that you can use when you create or when you come across these activities, starting with just a note where you're putting some instruction. You can also have a text input which the students will use, or you can use functions can be put. You can put multiple choice check boxes kind of questions, and also you can make them to be self check. So there is always something which I'm hoping that one fine day I'll say that I've learned, and that's the computational layer, which allows you to create these self-check activities. Of course, you can also arrange them ordered list. So if you are a teacher who's maybe teaching social science and for you timeline is important, you can create Desmos activities where the children can drag and arrange them in the order that you are looking at. And of course, not to forget, of course, math. So there has to be graph, there has to be also sketch. You can actually sketch just by picking up that pen tool and represent what you want, and bring in images, bring in geometry tool, insert a table. There are some action buttons which you are going to experience as we start giving you the hands-on experience of it. And of course, graphing calculator, marble slides is a very, very interesting set of activities that you can create, which can take the student and push the students to extreme challenge, so that they do not feel that they know everything. They need to explore and come up with the various answers or possibilities. And card sort is for all, and you're going to experience it. So without any further delay, if you can join with me, I'll be super happy. If you can just open up desmos.com and you can type in the student. So if I'm going back to desmos.com, and if you can type in the code which is showing up here in the slides, or if Viva can put in the link of the activity which I have created for all of you in the chat. And if you click on that link, it will take you straight into the Desmos. You need not sign in if you're not comfortable. You can join in without signing as well. So I'm talking about my first activity. The code for that is H2V983. So where does one put the code, or where would the student put the code? That's going to come here. This is the place where the code would come. Uh, I'm going to give you some minute or two to sign in and see. And in the meanwhile, I'm going to open up these activities to see if you are with me or not. So that is the basic, idea of having the, a possible tool like this, to see if somebody can join in or not. Let me see if we can get in inactive code. So maybe I've got something wrong opened there. Let's see here. Let me refresh my screen for a minute and bring back the activity for you. Uh, all right. I can see from my dashboard that I have two students joining me right away. Thank you, Sudha. Thank you, Sudipta. And yes, it's for everyone, so do not worry. And this is just a sampler. So it is not going to be a full math lesson. It is going to be something where you can just get the feel of the options that Desmos brings in. Again, for those who have just joined me, I hope you can find the link in the chat. Just click join in, or otherwise go to desmos.com, find this students tab there, and then type in the code. The code is H2V9K3. Once you join in, you will be in the dashboard that I am showing right now. And this is where the fun starts. I can actually see how many people are on my first screen, how many are have moved on. We'll take a look at what their answers is. But also, first, of course, thanks to all these three ladies who have joined me, but I can always hide their names just to give them the feel that they are not being watched over. You have the freedom now to do what you want to write. So I can, as a teacher, put their names anonymous. And not only they're anonymous, we get the names of certain mathematicians across the world. And I see vi hart Hart. I'm not too sure how exactly to pronounce, but that's one person. If you haven't seen her videos of how she explained maths concept, then definitely go and do that. And of course, this can again become a secondary activity for the students, that please go and do the research on who these mathematicians are, what kind of work have they done. And you can see how nicely they are progressing along. So what are they doing? Let's take a look at, as a teacher, as to what these students are doing. So again, I can definitely, it's saying that anonymous mode is on, so it gives me that warning regularly, continuously. Let's go to the first screen, and the first screen is just a check in. So which emoji best captures how you feel right now? And they are putting their answers in. I can open a student slide and I can see, well, maybe this one, there is a little dot that the student had to bring, and this particular student seems to be pretty happy with where we are right now. As I maybe move to the maybe move up to the arrow here, I can see other students coming in, their response coming in as well. And I can also see that Liu Hui has not responded, and I can prompt and say, can you move that dot to the icon emoji, which represents, how you're feeling. And then we can move on and take a look at where the class is progressing. So I can see now I have one student who is thinking about this one. So this is like, what do you notice, what do you wonder? And the student is asked to just answer in the text box. So people in the YouTube, if you are with me or if you are going to watch later, think about how you can bring such activities in your classroom to start a discussion, maybe something that you did yesterday or something that you want to introduce now. So let's see what our students are doing here. So there are just a pair of socks there, right? What do you notice? Yes, there are two pair of socks. The other student says, I notice red and blue socks. And then wonder, I wonder why pink color is not there. Yeah, definitely. My favorite pink is not there. I wonder if I will look good in these. Isn't that a wonderful thought coming from a student? So definitely, you will find that when you give an option to the student to chat, to talk, and especially if it's a math concept, you will see definitely great responses. And of course, I noticed two pair of socks. I wonder where's the yellow pair. Now, again, looking at this prompt right now, my thought is going a little different. I wonder if they are both representing the pair of socks, then how is this balance hanging, not looking aligned as the red socks? Is that the one socks has a maybe stone pebble in it? Why is it heavier or looking heavier than the other one? Isn't that a possible thought that one student might come up with? I think if you leave it to the students, they will definitely bring more possibilities. And that is where possibly you're getting an idea as to what's happening in this. As I said, it's not going to be a full lesson, it's going to be a sampler. So here is a task to the student. They have to balance the scale. So again, for those who have not joined in, exactly what does it look like? This was how it initially is. It's not balanced. Student has to enter a value to balance the hanger. So if you are looking at, there are two weights, x and 3, the other is 8. Is it going to be maybe 8 divided by 3? No, that does not balance the scale. So if I'm looking at, again, building up the concept of that linear equation, hopefully the students are thinking about, okay, what if it was 5 plus 3? It will make 8, and your balance is then gets sorted. So that's what our students are doing here as well, and responding to the questions. You can see that's what is happening there, and that is what I'm able to see as a teacher in one go. I don't have to go page by page. I can see their answers right away. Also, I see a student hesitating. So if I'm looking at this student who's hesitating, I can check, just click on it, and I get the screen of it. I can take it as a screen snapshot, and I can present it to the student. I can also send a feedback, and I can say, think of it in terms of weights, and what should be the weight. So I'm kind of giving a prompt, or sending a kind of a hint to the student to answer the question. So the moment the student gets a feedback, again, this could be synchronous, this could be asynchronous. So if you've assigned it as homework and you open up the work, you can put these remarks for the students, and when students open the Desmos, they will find this little green arrow. In the summary, I will be able to see that there is a green mark there. That means I have left a feedback. When a student reads this feedback, so I again urge the student Lee, no, by V Hart, to come back to maybe screen 4, read the remark, and then we'll see what happens, so that I know that if I have left a feedback, has the student read that remark. So we had to come back to screen 4 just to demonstrate. So I can also, look at it. Come on, Vihan, you're still on screen 5. Can you go back or can you move ahead? So everything is managed from the dashboard. Let's see if anybody has managed to do the target activity. So again, just to give you an example of how interactive they can be. So this is a kind of a target practice. So if you are teaching coordinate geometry, this is a great activity which has set of actually at least 6 to 8 slides. I have taken only one of them, and I can see the student working, and they need to they've got a target at 5 comma 1. Can you move this dot? Can you put different values here so that the point lands right bull's eye? So, any guesses? I'm looking at somewhere close to 2, but I can actually have a 2 point as well. So, I can give it a value of maybe 2.4. That's x. How much height should it have? Let's put a value of y here. So, that would be same as 5.3 perhaps. Well, I can change that a little more, make it 5.7, and the dot goes right in the bullseye. So, this is again something which the students can and will love to try, because this is where the student is just learning. It's not nobody is challenging them. It's just a task which the students are learning on their own. So we have one more student who has joined in. Thank you. So Cheng has joined in, and I can see that Cheng has skipped one of the questions. Can you see there's a blank there? That means that Cheng has not answered this question, and I can always go back to the giving feedback, or in the class when it's happening in the live mode, I can call out and say, come on, Cheng, let's answer that question, and then we'll move on. So that's the beauty of having Desmos, not only interactive activities, but you're also looking for various options. So here again, the question, it was an MCQ, they had to choose, and it is also a task which is a self check. So if you look at the students' work here, if I put x 3x equal to 8 to represent this equation, well, the student gets a response that's a wrong answer. If I choose the second one, no, that's not the correct one. So what's happening here? X and the weight 3, but it's not into, it's addition. So x plus 3, and the student gets a feedback. That's what the Desmos does. It helps the students to learn on their own. And yes, I have tried it out, I have tested it out, and I'm going to share some examples of, or showcase a possible entire lesson being done by the students, to give you a feel that it is a very, very valid, very, very possible way for you to teach in your classrooms as well. Moving ahead, let's see where the class is. As I said earlier, Desmos is for all, and Desmos is this beautiful feature of Desmos card sorts. And let's see if we has is anyone sorted the cards. Let's go back to the summary and see if anyone is on card sort. uh, well, can the students come to the screen 9? If you can all come to the screen 9, if you can move ahead, and if you can take a look at, can you play the card sort? And this is for the English teachers. So card sort is on. So I have some, but we do have a student who's almost there and has arranged adjectives, verb, noun. So what are these card sorts? You are actually picking a card and then dropping it so that they get connected in a pile. Again, students can do a self check, but teacher can also just by clicking here can check and see that out of this file one of them is not correct. So which one is not correct? Let's take a look. The adverbs is not correctly piled. So let's see if that is because they are not joined together, or maybe they are not piled together, or maybe even one word if it is wrong. Then also the pile will give an indication to the student that it is not correct. So take a look again, Concha Gomez, if you can check if your where could the error be. The others have not started it, but just to give you a demonstration. So if you are looking at adverb and I see drive and I bring it somewhere here, well, would that work? Is that the adverb? Let's cross check and see. No, that's not the right choice. So if I'm looking at drive, maybe I should put it with verbs. And if I now pull up this, I can see that there are more cards to come in. And as you go along, you can either check step by step or finish everything and then do the check. This is what we mean by card sort activity, which you can create not only for English or maths or science, for all subjects. And I have the next example, in fact, from the science. So again, this is the card sort created on science concepts. You have gas, you have solids, you have liquids, and can we arrange all of them in the piles that would give you an idea as to what they look like and whether. So again, card sort is something which can be helped to for the students to review a particular concept that they have learned, can help them to maybe get the definitions, clarity in their mind, can also be a quick formative assessment. So try to think about this. They can all be created with these. And I'm going to spend at least a few more minutes on taking you to how do we create or how do we use these activities. Let's see if we have students finishing it. So far, uh, no student has come to the last step, or we do have somebody here. So they said, well, so all the student has to do is once they've finished it, they just have to click on, well, I'm done. And the slide kind of changes or gives them some kind of a option. These are all taken, all my slides in this are being taken from various activities which have been shared by educators in the Desmos community. And I've kind of made a sampler for you. So the end activity or end slide could be anything. It could also be simply a way of giving students to write what they enjoyed about the task, what have they learned about the lesson, and anything else. At the same time, something very powerful which students don't like is the pause activity. I can put everybody on pause, and if they were students in my room and I'm teaching them and I put it on pause, you can actually hear a long wow, why have you done that? I was in middle of that, ma'am, can we go back to it and do it? No, I want your attention. I want you to pay attention now. So thank you for joining in and for playing, or maybe not. I'm opening it again. So if you are still at it, continue doing it. But to get back the attention of the student in the class to the board or to my screen so that they can understand what I'm doing is very, very important. And Desmos has that possibility of putting everything on pause. Let me quickly showcase where or what options I can do or have with my students. So this is a lesson, in fact, 3 lessons that were assigned over the summer holiday for students to do on their own, and they were required to just attempt and read and come back with an understanding of the first chapter of the 11 that we were supposed to do. And they were kind of kept busy doing these tasks over a period of time, but in their own ways. And the way that I get to look at it and see if they've finished it or not is just by the summary. And I can always go back and open any of these screens, look at what the students are doing, what kind of answers they have given, and also leave some feedback for them as and where needed. So that's a kind of a power that this dashboard has. At the same time, what really brings up possibility is creating these snapshots. So if you find some question, some answers given there which are either conceptually wrong or they are very interesting and a very different way of thinking, you can put them together as snapshots. So here I have 2 categories of snapshots saved. Once I'm back in the class, I can just open those snapshots and say, okay, let's take a look at how these answers differ, which one is the best one. So you're looking at plotting of the interval -3 -7 comma 0 on number line. Is there an answer that you do not agree with? So I might start with the one which I really want to bring focus to and say, is this the correct way to represent that interval? If not, then what would be the right way? Let's take a look at, maybe, and again, make it anonymous so that the students don't feel threatened. And you can then talk about, okay, do you think having the dots here is representing an open interval -7 comma 0? So your discussion is very, very focused, and you are showing them their exam work, their exhibits to say where this could be wrong. And that is more convincing than you writing or crossing their answers on the paper, and which they may not even come back to, or even not get a feedback about. So you can leave feedback very easily, and the students is getting it in a one-to-one way, so very, very individually. At the same time, my favorite moment of these lessons is to read something which they've been asked to share. So what was your favorite part of this lesson? And you would, feel good about putting in a little extra effort when you read these answers and say, my favorite part of today's lesson was how it was easy to understand. And of course, if a student says, because activities have been put up in such a way that it is easy to understand things, well, your day is made and all your effort is worth the while. So definitely these, and of course, one of the student has also said why he liked power set to be the best, because it made him think in a different manner. So these are the possible ways that you can hear them, give them a voice, and you are able to give them some feedback, connect with them, build up that relationship that we are often, missing in a classroom situation, or something which we are wishing for. Taking you back for my last 10 minutes of the session to and again, I am not checking the YouTube, so I hope all is good there. In case there is an urgent question, Viva will answer, but if not, I will come back to that. Let's take a look at where does one go to create or start these activities. So browse activities is where you will start off, and when you go to browse activities, you will see all these activities lined up there, which can be, ready to use. Starter screens, for example. So you have screens for check-in, you have screens for checking understanding, editable fraction task, some possible screen remixes, like, what I have chosen is a mix of screens, so these can also be used. Now these can be customized further if Desmos gives you the option of edit and copy. So let's take a look at where do you start making your own. If I go back to this page right now of home, you will find that here is in on the side are options of your stuff, which has dashboard, history, classes, custom activities, and collection. If you want to create an activity of your own, you can start with custom activities. If you have already identified an activity which you want to make use of, let's start first from there. So suppose I want to, maybe I have come across an activity, let's say movie times, and I want to use it in my class. But first you must check the student preview, check what each slide is about, and then only if it is serving the purpose of your lesson, choose to use it. Once you have decided on it, shortlisted that activity, you can assign that task. So you can assign it in two ways. One is to assign to your classes. So it's very well synced with your Google Classroom. If you are a Google Classroom user, you can assign to your Google Classrooms right from here. You can also create a single session code. When you create a single session code, for security reasons, they ask you to have students sign in. So with your students, you must make that mandatory. So if you click on it, then student will have to sign in and the teacher will have to approve, so that nobody from outside is jumping into the class. You can also have codes which are activated for 2 days or 2 weeks. 1 year, well, it is advised not to. So the code that I have shared right now and two more codes that I'm going to share, they will be valid for 2 weeks. Let's say we want this to be active for 48 hours. I can create invite code. Once I create invite code, then my dashboard is ready. And here is in these three dots is where you can find the student link. And once you click on that student link, the code comes up, even that link comes up, which you can copy and share with the students if you are not using Google Classroom, that is. But through Google Classroom also, directly, if you have imported all your classes in the Desmos, You can assign them, they get assigned as a draft. And once you're ready to assign them, you can go back to Google Classroom and do the needful as always. So it's very, very easy to create a code or a link and activate your activity. If you are still with me and excited to learn about how do you create activities, let's take a quick look at that. So again, custom activities. These are the custom activities that you can use. Now you can look at, various activities that you have created. They're already there. You can create a new activity by clicking on this button. So if you are happy to just jump in and start right from scratch, you may want to, start with a blank page. That would be the way to go. Not all of us are that comfortable or, confident. So let's take, and I don't, for most of the times, I don't start with a scratch. I like some activity, then I start tweaking it. So suppose I search for an activity here. So I am looking for something on linear equations or linear systems. Here I have. So system of linear equations. I have an activity here. Does it serve my lesson? Maybe it does. So I want to use it. If you click on these three dots on the top right corner here, there are two options. You can share activity. So with your co-teachers, you can share this activity. You can copy and edit. So if you want to put even, one slide of your own, or remove one slide, or if this lesson is too long and you want to make it short and crisp, you can edit the activity, and this is what it looks like. Do not touch if you find something on computational layer unless you're sure. Do not touch that part, but you can then add, delete. So I'm suppose coming to the first one. I want to add a media page. So I want to add media to the first page, and this is where I'm looking at where did that disappear? Okay, so let's go here and add one page. So maybe let's come back to right at the end and then add a page. And I want it to be media. So at the end, perhaps I want to add a media, could be just an image. So if I've added a media page, this is what it would look like. I can choose a file to upload. So I can find an image, the image that I had used earlier. I'm just choosing to use that. Desmos for all. That could be an image that you have added in, and you can publish. If you want to add more elements to it, maybe you want to give students a chance to sketch something, you can have that sketch component added in from here. Of course, this is not going to be learned in these 5 minutes. You will need to spend a little more time, but I hope you're getting an idea that this is 100% customizable depending on what your needs are, how you long or how interactive you want the lesson to be. And you can keep them playing. Do you want the graph to be, the background to be blank? Do you want it to be graph? You want to give them some prompts. Definitely needs a lot of thought and understanding. So where does one go to learn Desmos? Learn.desmos.com is the website for you to start if you want to start from fresh and want to learn all about Desmos. So come back here to the Desmos, learn.desmos.com. You can look at various webinars they conduct. You can get started with the activity. For the distance learning, they had special modules. And of course, even to use various calculators, you will find step by step kind of tutorials which you can use, to follow how to run your first lesson. See step one, step two. Spend some time going through this, and soon you would love to start using it in your classroom. But again, as my always the way is, that do not wait to achieve that perfection. Just jump in, and I'm sure you will have a great time. So as I said earlier, I was not able to follow the chat, but I hope you've been able to, and you are able to do that. So I just saw a question. I'm going to take some questions right now. How to use Desmos in offline school? So I think I have just answered that. You can assign Desmos activities through Google Classroom and let the students do them at home and you do the discussion in school. So change that way that you want. You can then put in, in your class, you can just project your screen and you can take up their, specific questions. Or as I use those snapshots, use snapshots to bring up the conceptual errors or something interesting, or where you find a student struggling, you can have that discussion going on, right? So definitely try that. I hope that has answered your question. And yes, DG APAC gives you certificate for joining us live. So please grab your participation certificate coming to you from GEG Nagoya. And again, it would not be correct if I don't mention that starting at 2:30, we have GEG Delhi NCR bringing you sessions in Hindi and English. And what you have just observed, if you want to learn more about Desmos, I have a session for similar session for you tomorrow in Hindi and a little bit of English as well, tomorrow at 5 o'clock. But please do follow our various websites and links. So the session, the schedule for both English and Hindi are available on GEG website, GEG Asia Pacific website. So look for that. And I think the link was shared there. And we are absolutely looking forward to you joining us in our other sessions of English and Hindi both. So have a great weekend of learning and let me know how you have enjoyed today's session. Send me a tweet at Sagita Gulati 9 and maybe put hashtag for GG APAC, GG Delhi NCR, and we'll be delighted to get connected with you. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining in today. Bye, everyone, and I'll see you soon.